Finding Cozy. At the edge of the meadow, where the creek goes wide and the cottage rows begin, sat the little blue house with a white picket fence where Cozy Rabbit lived. He did not live inside the house, of course, but beside it, where a large juniper spread like a blanket toward the lawn. The rabbit did not know he was a rabbit, for wild things do not know what they are called by people. And cozy was a word he had never heard until the extraordinary day when it became his name. He had found his home in a hurry one day when the leaves were falling from the trees. A large dog had chased him from the meadow toward the cottage rows. The two of them ran this way and that across the yard, under hedges, across trees, and right through a pile of raked leaves. It was then the rabbit zipped through an open gate and slipped behind the juniper. Once under the dense limbs, the rabbit could not be seen, and the barking dog lost his scent in the pungent smell of evergreen. A man from the house told the dog to go home and close the gate behind him. Under the juniper, the rabbit's heart slowly quieted, but only when the yard was still did he feel safe enough to take some tiny, whispered hops beneath the branches. Near the trunk of the bush, he found a layer of leaves held up by a tangle of roots. Underneath was a burrow just his size. Its floor was lined with dry grass and tufts of fur, which meant another rabbit had once lived there. He did not recall why, but this made the little burrow feel like home that night, and the next, and for all the nights to follow. Rabbits, however, do not measure time in days or weeks or months. They do not know the seasons by their names. This rabbit knew only that leaves once up were falling down, no longer green or gold or red, but matted thick in many shades of brown. Autumn became a drizzle of gray till winter winds brought colder days. When the ice and snow pressed the branches low, the rabbit passed most of his time out of sight. If ever he left the juniper den, he always returned again to curl up tight in a ball of fur with his long ears draped like a scarf around his neck. Sometimes when the night fell silent, muffled voices from inside the house found their way into the rabbit's dreams. He could match each voice with a face he had seen in the yard, but none of them knew he could hear them. Not one of them knew he lived so near in the warmth of the glow from their window. After the windows were no longer light, the falling snow made everything white. The clouds rolled by and the moon shone bright as shadows kept watch through the night. By morning light, a foot of new snow covered the frozen creek, blanketed the meadow, skirted round the little blue house, and swaddled the juniper in a drift of heavy snow. The rabbit was sleeping so deeply that not even the glow of the sun through his snowy roof could wake him. Deep in his slumber, he dreamt of the grassy meadow beside the flowing creek and of all the things he would not see again until spring. Suddenly, he was awakened by heavy footsteps stomping toward his den. Chunks of snow shook from the branches as the rabbit made himself as small as he could below the boughs of the juniper. "You missed me," said a giggling voice, and the quaking earth came even closer to the rabbit's burrow. The juniper branches jostled, a huge clumps of snow dropped to the ground. "Go ahead and hide in the bushes, Kenzie," said a deeper voice far away. "You'll have to come out sooner or later. I'm going inside, my hands are cold." "What good's a snow day if we don't play out in the snow?" Kenzie asked. With that, Kenzie's brother threw one last snowball and ran to the back of the house. As Kenzie backed away quickly to dodge the snowball, she lost her balance, fell behind the juniper, and hit her head on the wall with a thud. Her legs slid forward and her boots pushed the leafy root right off of the rabbit's burrow. The startled rabbit leapt out of his warm burrow and into the cold air. He frantically hopped back and forth around the den, trying to find a way out around the fallen girl. Such a commotion would normally have made the little girl scream, but instead she just sat there with a dazed smile. Rubbing the bump on her head, she leaned toward the trembling creature. "Shh, shh," Kenzie said. "It's all right, I won't hurt you. The rabbit stopped at the end of her boots, stood up on the hind legs, and looked into the little girl's eyes. "Are you sure you won't hurt me?" asked the rabbit. "Quite sure," Kenzie said. She spoke in the same voice her mother used whenever Kenzie woke from a bad dream. "It's just the two of us," Kenzie smiled. "My brother has gone inside. We were having a snowball fight." "A fight?" asked the rabbit. "Oh, not a real fight. It's just for fun with balls of snow. And they don't hurt as long as you don't get hit in the face. That last one he threw was coming right at my head, but I dodged it. That's when I fell down here with you." "I bumped my head on the wall," she said, wincing as she touched her forehead. Pulling off her right mitten with her teeth, she rubbed the large bump on her head. "Ouch," she whimpered. She tried to be brave, but the cold air and sudden pain made her eyes water. A single tear rolled down between her nose and cheek and stopped at the edge of her lip. "Why is your eye dripping?" asked the rabbit. She tasted the salty tear with her tongue. Deciding not to cry in front of the rabbit, she wiped her nose on the back of the coat sleeve. With a sniffy snuff, she smiled and said, "My eye is not dripping. That was a tear. Haven't you ever seen one?" The rabbit twitched his nose and thought for a moment. "I know what water is, but it never drips from my eyes." "So you don't know what a tear is?" Kenzie asked. "My eyes never drip, if that's what you mean." He leaned toward her face. "And I've never seen a tear before. Can you make one happen again?" "Well, tears only happen when I'm hurt or sad, but I'm all right now." She took a deep breath as if to restart the conversation. "My name is Kenzie. What's yours?" The rabbit tilted his head but said nothing. "Actually, my name is Mackenzie," she added. "I was named after my great-grandmother, but everyone calls me Kenzie. What's your name?" "Name?" the rabbit asked. "Yes, your name. What do people call you besides Rabbit?" "Rabbit? What's a rabbit?" he asked. "You are a rabbit, silly," Kenzie giggled. "Or a bunny, either one. But what you are is not your name." "I am a girl, but my name is not Girl. It's Kenzie." "When someone calls you to come, what do they say?" "No one ever calls me to come. They mostly just chase me till I hide." "Hide where?" whispered Kenzie. And with a twitch of his nose, the rabbit dropped down to all fours, dug into the leaves behind Kenzie's red boots, and disappeared. "Where did you go?" Kenzie spun to her hands and knees. Moving aside the matted leaves, she looked into a shallow hole at the rabbit who had smiled at her.